and then you use it and it strips off the insulation. So let's just give that a bash. So if I put it there, I know I've got to use the biggest hole there, and you want to test this. If you're not too sure of the hole, test it and make sure that it works correctly. So as you see, as I put it in, it bites down. It's also gripping the wire at the back here, and as I do it, there we go. It's pulled off the insulation. There's no free wires which have been broken off in there. Don't want to do. You also don't want to go and fold the copper over the insulation, and let's say we've got a bigger lug like this, so you go and fold it over so that you can then force it inside and use the actual insulation on the wire as part of the holding, because now you've reduced the surface area of the conductor that's actually going to touch the inside of this connector, and again potentially compromise the mechanical connector, which I think matches perfectly this piece of wire. If we look inside, the gauge seems to be about right. If I insert the actual wire and conductor, it goes in, or you get tired and you just don't do it correctly. So certainly it's very handy getting a ratcheted tool which can open up. You can hear the ratchet. You can then place the tool in with the wire, and you then crimp it together, and as you crimp it, a ratchet is holding. So even if you're getting tired and you need to release, it'll still hold it tight. You can then continue and finish the actual crimping process. So let's give that a bash with this one. So right, what I tend to do with this, because it can be a bit of a fiddly job if you've obviously got a few hands, the one thing you want to note also, on this crimp, before we put it in there, you're crimping the top. It's designed for the top to be crimped, not the bottom. So you're crimping from the top to get a good mechanical connection in there, so that you get a good all-round electrical connection with this as well. So on this tool, it's quite handy. It fits in quite nicely in the setting over here. I just close it enough so that it's gripped, it's not being crushed, so it allows me to free my one hand to then insert the wire. As I insert the wire, I'm ensuring that it's not going to bird cage or pull any of the actual wires back. If it is, I need to pull it back and correct that. It's gone in, you can see it's at the tip there, and I'm now in a position where I can grab this, making sure this doesn't slip out. I've grabbed it, it's now physically held it. Now I've got a problem, I don't have strong hands, so for me to crimp this with one hand is an issue. So I've just crimped enough for it not to fall out. It's in the right place, so I can then grab two hands and finish off the process. And it only allows you to release once you're done. So here we go. And what you want to do and check, and I'm going to show you this on camera, there seems to be a fairly nice even distribution of the crimping tool on this connector. The way it fits into that tool is to ensure that it does crimp and grab in the right places. It crimps the actual plastic at the back here so that there's a bit of strain relief on the connection, and obviously ensures that it pushes. Let's have a look at this lug, which seems to be sized better. So if I put that on, we can see that it goes in, and what you do want to ensure, you want to ensure that good mechanical and electrical connection that we want with this. So again, I've got a nice set of ratcheted crimpers. They're nice and heavy duty, and it makes doing this a nice chore. Nice long handles to give you the leverage, and obviously the ratcheting system which ensures that it will hold even if you have to release pressure for any reason. Right, so I've got my ratcheting tool ready. I've selected the right size on there so that the actual lug sits in there and is gripped firmly. I've got the actual tool which is going to cause the indent and actually cause the mechanical grip on the wire right in the middle of the lug. If you do have an inspection hole on top, you do not want to do it on top of the inspection hole to deform it. You want to do it away from that, but still in a good place where you got good purchase and it's going to grab the conductor. So here we go, I've got that, and now I'm going to crimp it. So there we go. I've got it crimped. It is relatively well placed in the center. From the inspection window, I can still see that my conductor is sitting at the end. It hasn't slipped out, and that's the value of having a little inspection window on your lug, because it might have slipped back during the process and you won't realize it. But here we can quite clearly see the conductor is right up against the end. What you want to do before you crimp your connector on, you want to have your heat shrink on there ready, because it might not fit over the lug. So just note that you want your heat shrink on first, unless you can get it on from the back of the cable itself, or otherwise you're going to be stuck. Right, so I've got my heat shrink on the actual wire itself. I now want to place it so that it goes over here. Why do I want heat shrink on here? Well, for one, it can obviously act as a form of insulation around just the top of the connector here if you don't want this to come into contact with anything else. Two, believe it or not, the heat shrink acts as a mechanical form of strain relief at the end here as well. It does help a little bit to prevent the kind of, if there's any flex on the wire, it adds a little more support so that you don't get a breaking over here on your conductor. So when we put this heat shrink onto the actual lug itself, how far do we go? So what I do for that, I happen to have an old paint stripper gun which I use. You do of course get guns and equipment which are meant for heating evenly. But anyway, this seems to do the job well for me. Right, so that happened quite easily. What you want to be aware of is you do want to apply enough heat so that it shrinks over and properly tightly holds onto the places over here, or else it potentially is going to slip off. You do get heat shrink which apparently has got an adhesive side so that it does prevent it from sliding off on insulation. But here I've got a good mechanical connection because I'm going over the lug as well. I haven't covered too much of the lug. There's still a nice piece that's exposed so that we get good contact area for